All right. Hello, everyone. We're halfway through this week's event, would you believe? We've already made some great progress. And just because we've continued to have more people joining each day, I have to go over these announcements again and kind of talk about a few changes and comments of things I've seen that might be helpful to people that have been here since day one as well. Okay. So we had a really awesome day yesterday, and a load of people posted their homework. I actually spent a few hours reading and responding today. I actually got quite lost in it all, really. There's so many people that are so openly sharing, and so many people, and I'm sorry to say, that are in so much of a chronic pain trap, and they're really identifying with that as well. I actually got quite lost and was nearly late for some meetings today because of that. So I'd show up and say, "Sorry, I'm late. I was answering homework." But I got through most of it by the time I was able to step out today and do some other things I needed to do. I'm sure there's plenty more to go through now as well as people have caught up, and I will absolutely be doing that. So far, we've had an amazing response. I'm really, really happy with the people, with what they've been saying, with what they've been doing, and just how people are experiencing this. So I'm really excited. I mean, this is our second year doing this, and it feels like we are kind of on track for success here. So I'm very thrilled with the response. Please bear with the team as we get caught up. We are managing to stay on top of things, but there might be a little bit of a delay as we kind of catch up. You get a big influx of people at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, and it can take a little bit of time. So if someone hasn't gotten back to you, I do apologize, but trust that we will. So for those of you who are new, I'm Dr. Rob Vanbergen. I'm a doctor of natural medicine, a doctor of humanitarian services. I hold a PhD in natural medicine as well, and I'm one of the founders of Pain Free for Life. I am the host of the 5-Day Jumpstart, so welcome once again to everyone live, everyone watching the replay as well. And speaking of which, if you are new, please introduce yourself. I'd love to know what brought you here, what you hope to achieve. There's always so many things that we can be looking for as a health goal. And it's so diverse. And really what we're doing here is a very diverse option as well. And if you go back to day one and you look at what we were saying, then you'll see just why I'm talking about that. So when you do post, make sure to do a hashtag live, hashtag replay. If you're on Facebook, especially, I'll be able to go back and read those. But my team will also be able to take notes, so we'll be able to help you out as necessary as well. So we want to make sure you don't miss anything. So we're going to be having a lot of extra communications. We're sending out emails, we're sending out texts. The goal is not to overwhelm you. It's just to give you the info that everyone is emailing and calling and asking for anyway. Three very important pieces of information here. You can get your replays, the workbook, and access to our Facebook group on pffljumpstartreplays.com. Please do not share this link. It's just for people that have registered for the event. If you want to get on Zoom, you can go to pffljumpstartzoom.com if you'd rather join me here on Zoom than on Facebook. Totally your choice. And you can text Leo at 415-688-2045. If possible, it is really important that you connect with your concierge to get on that text loop. It's going to get you access to special bonuses, private event invites that are only really available via text. And if you haven't had contact with your concierge yet, drop hashtag need a concierge in the Facebook group or here in Zoom chat, or you can email concierge@painfreeforlife.com. Okay. So that is the important piece there. And that will allow you to get in touch with Leo. Again, I've shared the number there. One thing I will say is we discovered today that if you've blocked texts accidentally from us, we won't be able to receive your texts either. So if you've texted us and you're not hearing back, that might be why. So do try the email there as well. For the full event experience, I recommend you get in the Facebook group. You can go to pffljumpstartreplays.com. You'll be able to join the group through there. You can watch the replays each day there as well. The big benefit to the Facebook group is honestly just being able to interact on homework. I get to see your homework questions and interact with you as well. And a lot of people are talking to each other as well about what's going on and kind of identifying with some similarities, which is really interesting to see. So do make sure if you want to join the group that you answer the 3 questions in order to get access. My team will probably be following up with you if you haven't done that, okay? So we're going to go through the guides section really quickly and just how to access that. So let me just hop on here and share this with you. Just one second. So the guide section here is on the Facebook page, and it has a whole slew of information. So you just see on here underneath the names, you can click guides. And here you'll get all of these things getting started, all of these things that how to get your concierge contact, as well as these handy executive summaries and the homework threads as well. So there is homework for this event if you're new, and no one likes doing homework, but very, very important piece here. So session 2's homework thread and day 2 executive summary. So after this event, you'll see the day 3 summary and the day 3 homework event. So that's where you can access all of these things as well. Okay. All right. So if you do have questions, don't worry. We will cover as much as we can in the Q&A on Saturday. So take note of them, save them for the live event. You can even submit the questions to Leo. Leo will get them to my team. And you can even ask the questions in chat here on Facebook, in the comments, or in chat on Zoom. My team's going to scoop them up, and we'll store them for the Q&A session. So don't be shy. We're going to be answering every question that we can in that session. And finally, for the day, right after this, we have a great recap of lessons 1 through 3 for you at 5 p.m. Pacific. So if you've missed some sessions and you want to get caught up, or maybe you want to recap, or perhaps you've been watching replays because of the time zone differences, then maybe this will work out for you, okay? So I hope to see as many of you as possible there. We'll be going through the last 3 days in the span of 1 day, so in time-wise. So we'll get a lot covered there. All right, so let us dive right in here. I'll load up the presentation. And here we go. Perfect. All right, so welcome, day 3, the Hache Protocol, 5 interactive elements to becoming pain-free. It's kind of the first 4, so we'll be covering the other one tomorrow because it's such a big piece of it. But we're going to be diving in here on Jumpstart day 3. Yesterday, we talked about the root source of our chronic pain, kind of how inflammation can cause further disease, and the aggravators of the inflammatory response as well. And I asked people to think a little bit about your symptoms that you experience, how they might be connected to inflammation, their impact on your life, and to consider the aggravators. And, you know, people were really honest. And that's the awesome part about this, right? Is honesty is what's going to get us where we need to be. Some people were like, you know, I'm not quite as good at eating well as I thought. I don't do much exercise. One person said, you know, stressful relatives. I know we talked about toxic relationships yesterday and how that can be challenging for sure. And it's not that you have to get rid of these things. It's that being aware of them is very, very important here, okay? So we've discovered the root cause. We've kind of gone through that. We know that inflammation can create channelopathies and that inflammation can kind of form the cause and root of these diseases. So now we can finally start to look to the solutions. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to the first 4 of the interactive elements of the Hache Protocol, which is critical to understanding how to reverse the root problems. So first off, let's talk about the roots of the Hache Protocol itself and sort of the seeds of how it began. So the Hache Protocol, you might be thinking, well, why is Dr. Rob Vanbergen teaching the Hache Protocol? Well, the Hache Protocol is named after my parents, Doctors John and Laurie, whose natural health experience has been combined into over 70 years in the field. So my dad, technically my stepdad, that's where the name difference is, Dr. Hache, and my mom, Dr. Laurie, they have kind of created this protocol over all of those years as a result of necessity. So the Hache protocol was designed to incorporate everything that the body needs to restore optimal function to the cells. And it's always involved the body electric. And this is in order to allow the body to essentially start to begin to heal again. For my mom, part of developing this protocol was to help me overcome my scoliosis as a child and get back to living a normal life. And it worked extremely well. And for my dad, this protocol was instrumental in overcoming his rheumatoid arthritis diagnosis in just a couple of months and becoming inflammation-free in an ongoing capacity. So a big thank you to them, because without them, I would not be here today, out of pain, teaching other people how to get out of pain as well. Now, Hache Protocol is rooted in improvements in daily life, okay? Remember what I said, the choices that we make each and every day will impact our health because they will change the terrain of the body. The work you do in this course, whether that's the choice to eat the salad instead of the pizza, to take 15 minutes for yourself each day, to just do what fills your cup and makes you feel good, to go to bed at the same time each night, or just to walk to the mailbox instead of driving to it. These seemingly small decisions can add up to essentially create a ripple effect that will literally change the foundation of your fascia, your meridians, your nervous system, even your DNA and beyond. So you can kind of be the change you wish to see here. You know, we are what we eat, we are what we do, and it doesn't have to be all in one and all at once either. It can be gradual changes to make positive change in the long term. So the 5 elements of the Hache protocol involve, as simplified as I can make them, stress reduction, nutrition, fitness, sleep, and microcurrent therapy. Now, the first 4, most people have likely heard about. The last one maybe is a little bit more of an odd concept for you. Now, we call these interactive elements, not pillars. There's a reason for that. There's often a mistake when people are talking about the Hache protocol where they mention, following the 5 pillars of the protocol. But the distinction is very important. When we set about to name the protocol, we distinctly called it the 5 interactive elements of the Hache protocol because these elements, much like elements in nature, feed off of one another. Pillars don't need to interact, right? The point of pillars is to hold something up. And you see this all the time in ancient Rome, right? In Italy, you see this in Greece. You see pillars holding up a building, maybe 1, 2, 3 pillars have fallen, but the roof is still up. Now, the point of pillars is to hold that up. Buildings can lose a pillar or 2 and still stand. But when you lose an element, everything begins to descend into chaos, right? And this is the same here. When we lose elements from the Hache protocol, we are actually creating the weakness within our bodies, and we're kind of welcoming that in. So let's dive into these a little bit more. So first off is stress reduction. And everyone, I would say pretty much everyone that did their homework that I got to look at already kind of identified stress as a major factor in their lives. And we all know that stress can have this big impact on our lives, right? We feel the knots in our stomach, the thoughts of panic when we have to get involved in something stressful. Stress, it's a very important part of life. It helps keep us safe. But when stress becomes chronic, much like chronic pain, it absolutely devastates us. It wrecks our lives. And stress will activate the fight or flight response here as well. Now, the fight or flight response is an automatic physiological reaction to an event that's perceived as stressful or frightening, okay? The perception of threat activates the sympathetic nervous system, and it triggers an acute stress response that prepares the body to fight or flee. Has anyone here, anyone watching, and please do comment in the chat or on Facebook here, is anyone here feeling like daily stress is a part of their problem? And this fight or flight piece is likely going to resonate with you because it can stem from the issue itself, or it can be the cause of the issue itself. Yeah, and people are saying here on Zoom, anyway, that's why the chat I can see, tons of stress. Stress is a part of it, absolutely, right? Now, think about this stress response in a good light, okay? In nature, we might be running from a bear that wants to make us its lunch. And we live in Canada here, and there's a bear that lives down the street here, and it raids my trash can all the time. If I see that bear, I am probably going to panic. I'm going to run, and I'm going to survive, and I'm going to take a breath, and I'm going to feel okay after it, right? In health, we're often running from the pain. And I think it was one of you who's watching today that actually said in their homework that they're constantly worried about when the next migraine will hit. And that is exactly the point here. This is exactly what we mean. The stress And the anxiety associated with dealing with chronic pain puts us into this fear state where, without even knowing it, our nervous systems fail and they become absolutely, totally shot. This, on a deeper level, involves the adrenals as well. And I think I cover that in a little bit here. Now, think about it for a moment, okay? Because this scenario is very familiar to me. I used to have what I would call chronic anxiety when I was in university doing my first of many degrees. I feel like an endless student. But the idea of the stress and the fear of what's coming, right, was the biggest problem. So if you wake up today and the pain really isn't that bad, maybe it's not even there, your brain simply can't accept that because you have been wired and conditioned by your condition to believe that it's going to come back. So you start to worry, right, about when the pain will flare up again. And even if it doesn't, it constantly nags at you that it might, that it's going to come back. These feelings, these are the fight or flight response. And while they may not be that traditional running away from a bear that wants to rip you to shreds, they are every bit as real, and they put you in that same physiological state, and it alters your ability to heal. Someone said chronic adrenal fatigue. Absolutely. And the problem with adrenal fatigue as well, I think I talk about this in a moment here, is that according to most of Western medicine, it doesn't exist. It's not a thing, right? It is a huge, huge problem. So let's compound this, because already we know stress sucks. Everyone here is saying stress sucks. I wish I didn't have stress. And again, I'm saying there's a good side to stress, but yes, obviously, I agree with you. When we enter that fight or flight response, it is to survive. Stress, though, it halts the healing process because there's no need to heal in a temporary state of fight or flight. It's not conducive to survival on a biological level at all. So our body halts the process. It says, let's put a hold on healing because we need to move all of our energy into Rob's legs so he can escape the grizzly bear, right? Actually, it's a black bear. I shouldn't say grizzly bear. But so I can escape the bear so that you can run from your pain. So your body is putting you into that state, shutting down the ability to heal, and ultimately compounding the problem. Because if we live in fight or flight all of the time, or most of the time anyway, all we're doing is allowing the inflammation to burn. Remember that analogy I made yesterday with the room on fire, with none of the healing benefits of that inflammation. And it will continue to cause breakdown and damage within the body. And it just continues to compress and compound itself. Cortisol and adrenal fatigue. Whew. Cortisol, which is produced by your adrenals, and again, someone mentioned this already, it curbs functions that would be non-essential or harmful in a fight or flight situation. Again, this would normally regenerate when you exited fight or flight. It's kind of like a battery. But in cases in which you stay in it, your cortisol becomes drained and drained and drained, and adrenal fatigue can set in. And in response to stress, the adrenals release greater amounts of cortisol. And so adrenal fatigue then becomes the dominant component of everything because it can lead to body aches, to fatigue, to nervousness, sleep disturbances, digestive problems, and beyond. It further impacts all of the other elements of the Hache Protocol because we were unable to deal with it. So this is a huge, huge issue. And again, adrenal fatigue, if you just go ahead, I think if you just Google it, it says, it's a pseudoscience. It's a condition that no one can agree on whether it exists. Well, the evidence is right in front of me. The tens of thousands of patients that we've worked with at Pain Free for Life that all have had adrenal fatigue. And you know what? When you work on the adrenals, when you repair them, when you get the body out of fight or flight mode, and you put it into a calm, relaxed state, those batteries, they're not dead. They can start to regenerate. And then we can handle the small bouts of stress when we need to, but otherwise we can move on and actually live our lives, right? Okay. So, nutrition, element number 2, okay? Everyone knows what we should and shouldn't eat. Let's be honest, right? You kind of look at it and you think I probably shouldn't eat that. but very few of us actually adhere to this knowledge. This is actually probably, though, the element that most people change the fastest because it's something that can actively be done, okay? We know what's bad for us, and some things are obvious, right? The fast food burger is probably not going to be good for you. Others are not so obvious, though, right? Is the salad that you're eating every day causing you inflammation? So gut inflammation, it will impact the vagus nerve. So you're going to start seeing more connections here as well. Gut inflammation is like a fire that spreads throughout the body. We have to keep this fire low, or we risk a slew of symptoms coming rushing in, okay? Our vagus nerve goes both ways. And as much as it sends signals to our gut actually sends signals up to the brain as well. And in fact, it sends way more signals from the gut to the brain than the brain to the gut. So we kind of get to see who is in control. There's a lot of studies as well that show that the bacteria in our gut actually can send signals that trigger cravings that make us worse at eating the things. We eat too much pizza. Again, I told you guys at the beginning I was going to pick on pizza and I was going to pick on hamburgers. If you eat too much pizza, the bacteria in your gut starts to overwhelm the other bacteria, and it's pizza-loving bacteria. What it wants you to do is give it more pizza. So it sends signals to your brain because it's dominating that phone line, and it says, hey, Rob's brain, we should have pizza for dinner. And so I think I really shouldn't, but I really want it. And then I do it, and I make more bacteria that likes pizza, dominate the other bacterias, and so on and so on. And these favorite foods that people develop, especially junky foods, when they've gone off of them for a while and then they go back and they try it, they're often disgusted with the taste because their bacteria in their gut has changed and it's not happy with them for going back to something that it doesn't want. So this is kind of the way that we know that the microbiome is so important here. When it's in balance, when we have a balanced, healthy diet, it's a good thing. So we have to be aware of this connection. And I'm curious, people here, if you guys would say you are actually good with your diet or not. Most people are nowadays that are in chronic pain kind of dump something like gluten. They dump gluten or they dump dairy or they dump all of the things that they think are allergens. But they still have kind of cheat days. And, some people think it really is the problem. Other people not so much. Yes, and I can see people here are sending me messages all about the vagus nerve, and vagus nerve is a very big part of it. And while it's controlled by food, it's controlled by the other elements as well. And we're going to see kind of how it's a little bit more connected as we move through this program this week. So supplements. Okay, supplements probably are the number one thing when I speak to patients that they're like, oh, by the way, I take these supplements, so I'm covered on this. But they can do just as much harm as they can do good. 9 out of 10 clients I work with over supplement. And again, I mentioned this at the beginning, there is such a thing as over supplementation. Remember that the definition of the word supplement is something that completes or enhances something else when added to it. Very rarely does a supplement do more for your body than a food would. Caveat to that, if you're buying store-bought, processed, heavily chemical saturated foods, then the supplements are going to be better than the foods. But if you're able to grow a little bit of your own food, if you can buy from local farmers, you're probably going to be better off buying that and eating that. You'll get more nutrients than you will from the supplements. So supplements, in my experience and the way I prescribe them, if you can use that word with supplements, are really there to bridge that gap in people that are ultimately unable to address their needs nutritionally. Until I solved one of my own problems, it was just last year, I was not able to eat raw fruits and vegetables. I had to cook them before I ate them. So I would actually take a vegetable supplement to help me get a lot of the green vegetables, because you can't cook a lot of the green stuff like lettuce and things and not have it, for example, I hate kale. So I take a supplement that was kind of included kale and things like that. All these greens that were good for me that I couldn't take. Having resolved that, I now just eat the food and I no longer need the supplement. But that's an example of needing a supplement to address a need that you can't fill otherwise. Vegetarians or vegans, for example, may be unable to get certain things, and then they really need to supplement them too. So no shaming for anyone with supplements, but most of the time when I tell people that they may not need to take a lot of the supplements they're taking, they see dollar signs in their eyes and they think about how much money they're going to save, because supplements are pricey, especially when you look at someone's medicine table and it's like 50 different supplements on there as well that they're buying every single month, right? Anyways, a diet for everyone. This is another problem with nutrition, and this is something that the Hache Protocol advises against. I do not consider diets to be a one-size-fits-all thing. Just because that diet worked for your friend, for your neighbor, for everyone around you, it doesn't mean it's for you. Again, there are multiple different diets for different situations, and I want everyone to kind of realize the importance of individualized healthcare here in this regard. In the case of people in pain, you should aim to avoid inflammation flare-up foods like processed and fried foods, red meat, dairy, sugar, gluten, alcohol, and more, and prioritize anti-inflammatory foods, which we do get into further here as well. And again, perhaps this is easier said than done, and in a lot of ways, it's all about creating positive habits. Number 3 is the dreaded fitness. This is, and I'll ask you guys to let me know in the comments and in the chat what your worst element is here. This is my worst one. This is the one I dread. You know, my sister loves running. My other sister loves hiking. I'm like, oh, come on. Can I just do something? This would be where I would say, can I just take a supplement that can fix the fitness lacking? But it's an equally important piece of it. And fitness is a problem for a lot of people in chronic pain because, of course, it's hard to move around, right? Considering an exercise as something that they should include is challenging for people. People, however, who do light exercise are going to encourage blood flow, reduce muscle weakness, and in general, enhance their healing process. And staying hydrated is important as well. So the key to this is kind of to not overdo it. It's very important not to overdo it. People start to feel better and then they go on a massive hike with their dog or they bike around town. They feel great the next day or for the day or so, and then worse the next. And I get calls and people say, you know, I felt so good that I went on a run and now I can barely hold my knee steady. It hurts so much. It's way worse than it was before. And, you know, you can push it. If you haven't used your muscles for months or years, suddenly using them can certainly stretch them and damage them. So it is important to not overdo it. It's also important to realize that exercise is actually important. It doesn't have to mean, though, extensive workouts. Like everything in life, it's all about moderation and balance, okay? And this is key. So movement as medicine is one of my absolute favorite terms because it is a better way, really, of saying what we mean when we say fitness. To understand the power of exercise, all we need to do is look at titles of published articles around exercise. And these are just a few examples I love to pull, but there are countless more. So let's read these. Physical activity can improve arthritis symptoms by 40%. So not exercise, not running a marathon, not lifting weights, but just physical activity, 40% improvement. Exercise alleviates some symptoms of Parkinson's disease and can slow its progression. Okay, that's another big one too. Exercise can reduce your risk of developing type 2 diabetes. I think we probably all knew that, but it's still a good one to include. And this last one is kind of killer here, right? 20 minutes of exercise can act as an anti-inflammatory. So 20 minutes of exercising in a day can act as an anti-inflammatory. It will reduce inflammation. Now, exercise also works to reduce depression symptoms and things like that. And there's an interesting reason why, and that is because depression, mental health issues, these are also all connected to inflammation of the brain. So it's kind of all over the place here. Exercise reduces stress. So exercise will help reduce stress and the compounding effect that stress can have on inflammation. Multiple studies have shown, again, I just mentioned this, I got ahead of myself, that short exercise can actually address depression and anxiety better than medications. So it's a pretty big deal. And the fourth element, and the final one that we'll be covering today, is sleep. Some people love sleep, some people hate sleep. Personally, I love sleep. It's my favorite time of day. I get into bed and I will be out within 5 minutes and I'll sleep through the whole night and wake up in the morning. Just actually, usually right before my alarm. Now, my wife was the opposite, okay? She could lay there tossing and turning while I slept soundly for 2, 3, sometimes 4 hours and not sleep. And there were a lot of bad habits she had that, in my opinion, don't tell her I said that I believe are the reasons for that. But I did say she was the opposite because for her, she's now solved her issue as well, though we'll talk a little bit about how and why tomorrow. So while I don't suffer from sleep issues, I do understand the pain that they can cause. And there are tons of research articles linking even Alzheimer's and dementia, especially early onset, to lack of sleep. And this goes beyond to brain fog, to all of these things that I've seen people mention in their homework as well, and many people mentioning that sleep is the issue as well, right, for them. So sleep debt. So sleep is a line of credit, and many of us have an absolutely massive sleep debt, okay? It's something that we really want to get ahead of. Not getting adequate sleep over a series of days causes what is known as sleep debt to progressively build day by day. So for example, a person needing 8 hours of sleep but getting only 5 would build a sleep debt of 3 hours that day. A person with an 8-hour sleep need who gets 6 hours each day for 5 days builds a sleep debt of 10 hours. This is only over a course of a few days or a week, right? So the question becomes, what if you haven't slept for decades? What if you haven't slept most of your life? How do you even begin to pay that back? And is it possible? Well, we pay back our sleep debt when we get into a deep sleep. One of the most critical stages of sleep is deep sleep. This is actually where we repair and get well. And if you've ever gone to bed feeling sick and then woken up the next day, and it's taken you a while to realize that you're feeling better, that is the power of deep sleep. Sleep has a lot of power. It really does for what it is. Without sleep as well, with too much sleep debt added on top of that, we'll end up with what is commonly referred to as brain fog, and we will find ourselves unable to think straight. And given time, we'll be more susceptible to those conditions like dementia, general memory problems, extreme mental fatigue, all of which are inflammatory conditions. The concept of inflammation affecting the brain is a big, big problem that can really, really hurt a lot of people. And it can even cause cellular aging and be a dramatic issue. So as far as sleep being a problem, this is something that is actually relatively easy to fix, even if the concept of sleep debt, which again, we'll get into a little bit more, is kind of harder to pay back. We're going to talk about the sleep debt and paying it back tomorrow when we get into the fifth element, and a little bit of how we can kind of artificially do that. Because the easy answer to sleep problems is to sleep better. And as easy as that is, it's very hard. And there are some environmental changes that we can make. There's not really much you can do supplement-wise either. But when you run into this sort of issue, you will find you are more easily stressed. You will find you have issues digesting and processing nutrients. You will find that it's hard for you to exercise because you get so tired, right? So you're impacting these issues by not sleeping. Sleep supplements, this is something I wanted to touch upon as well. People talk about these a lot. There's a lot out there, things like valerian root and things like that, that can help you sleep. The only one in my experience that kind of works is melatonin, and that is only if melatonin is a deficiency that you have. So a lot of the time, staring at screens will cause this problem through melatonin, essentially burns the melatonin up. But when you're getting into the situation where you're looking at these supplements that knock you out, they are just as bad as sleeping pills. And sleeping pills, which are very commonly prescribed to people that can't sleep, they won't get you to deep sleep. They're going to keep kicking you and kicking you and kicking you while you're down. So there's a lot of things to consider about sleep and ways to kind of go about it there. Someone said, interestingly enough, they can't even get to sleep with sleeping pills. Yeah, that's a problem too. Sometimes it doesn't even work because our brain chemistry is so wired against it. Melatonin, you're saying here as well that you tried melatonin and found it's not good for you. Yeah, I actually find melatonin gives me nightmares. And it's the same with my kids. So it's like, just don't put the screen down before bed and use some candles instead of lights, and you'll find it actually helps a lot with your natural melatonin stuff. But there's a lot of issues, right? Anything that knocks you out, flat out, is not going to be good for you because it's not going to allow your sleep cycle to process effectively and properly. Okay, so Day 3 homework challenge, guys. And we're getting through this. As I said, we're more than 50% through this week. I'd like you to think a little bit about what we've talked about today and to reflect on what your healing journey has been so far once again. In your workbook on page 13, 14, there's 2 pages, you're going to find a space for you to answer the below questions. And I'm going to modify this a little bit, okay? So on the scale of 1 to 10, there's a scale on there. I'll show you right here. There's a scale on the bottom of the page. You see that? On a scale of 1 to 10, mark what you're doing right for the elements and mark where you can improve with the elements. Be honest with yourself because there's no way we're going to get to positive change if we don't identify where the issues are. And that's what this is to do. You're going to rank from 1 to 10, 1 being not at all, 10 being every day. How often do you employ healthy habits in the Hache protocol? Now, there are five elements, but we're focusing on the first 4, and there's only 1 scale. But I'm going to ask you to rank yourself on each element individually. We were thinking originally of doing an average. Oh, I'm a 7 now on average. But let's actually use this critical information to identify the problem. You know, if you sleep really badly, like you don't sleep at all, maybe you're a 3 in sleep. But if you have a killer diet and you have no digestive issues, maybe you're a 10 in nutrition. Let's rank these out and post them because this will help us identify the holes in your treatment needs. We'll know which element is causing all of these problems with other elements. And it's easy to kind of say, you know, oh, I know it's this one, I know it's food, but really think about it and just think, you know, maybe you're not as bad with your food as you thought. Maybe your worst is a 6 and you're great with everything else. Maybe it's a 1. Maybe you literally don't eat healthy at all. These pieces will help us identify that. So you can either do an average of them all if you want, or rate each one. I do like the idea of rating each one of these here. Tomorrow, we'll be talking about the day 4, the secret to resolving pain permanently, which is microcurrent. This is our last element. Now, there's a few little questions here. People just saying, you know, can I rewatch this lesson? I still need the workbook. If you need the workbook and you haven't been able to reach out by text, send an email. You can also go to the concierge at painfreeforlife.com. You can also go to the website, pffljumpstartreplays.com. And you can see actually Sophie just posted that in the chat. If you click that link, you'll be able to download the workbook right off of the page, okay? And if you are behind, remember, I am right on in the next 20 minutes doing a recap of all the last 3 sessions, including this one. So you'll be able to get that there. I do hope you'll join me tomorrow in the next video for day 4 of our Jumpstart Challenge. As I said, I'm going to introduce the 5th and final element of the Hache Protocol. We're going to talk about the body electric in more details and the profound effect it can have on the body and all of the elements that we've covered today, because this really seals them all together and ties them together. Remember, if you have any questions, reach out to your concierge, okay? The number here is 415-688-2045, okay? Otherwise, I'll be back on in 20 minutes to go through this again, as well as going through the other element pieces as well, okay? So just reminders, please drop your homework in the homework thread in the Facebook group and look in the guides as well. I also want to introduce everyone to Annie. Now, Annie is my lead treatment coordinator. She is my right-hand woman. She keeps me alive doing what we're doing here at Pain Free for Life. She's going to be going through some of the homework as well. So her name is Annie. So if you see Annie commenting, Annie is a big part of what we do here at Pain Free for Life. And we'll be talking a little bit about our treatment coordinator support and how all of that works in a while. But I just wanted you to say hi to her. She'd love to hear from you, and she's going to try and drop in and say hi there as well. And remember, any questions you're kind of coming up with through this, anything you're kind of like, what do you mean, Dr. Rob? Go ahead and drop those questions in the QA section in the guides. Let Leo know. We can build these questions up and we can have an awesome Q&A session on Saturday morning. For those of you who want to attend the recap sessions, again, that's going to happen on the same link in 20 minutes time. And I'll be going over sessions 1 through 3 and trying to complete that in 45 minutes. Good luck to me there. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow with another awesome session. And if you like what you experienced, remember to invite your friends to register. We've had a lot of people that are doing that as well, which is awesome. Okay, I really appreciate it. It's nice to see all the new people that are coming in. Okay, everyone, thank you. I will see you all in a little bit or tomorrow morning. Take care.